Hey everybody, Brian Raisin coming at you live from Ohio State University. Today I'm at the Fisher College of Business campus, a beautiful little mini campus within the campus at Columbus. And today we want to talk about motivation theory and practice. This is set in the context of leadership and coaching and mentoring. And motivation theory, and really in particular the practice of motivation, comes into play dramatically in both of those things. So let's jump in. Again, key component in what we're doing. First question, have you ever found yourself asking, why did they do that? It could be good, it could be bad. I'm good with that. But our behavior is largely driven by motivation. Our motivations begin to explain the why. So there's a homework bit for you. If you haven't, just Google up Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, start with why, and watch that TED Talk. It's 17 minutes long. The first 5-6 minutes will take you where you need to go, and it will show you what I'm talking about with respect to motivation and how we're driven by our why. So DAFT, I like this definition, kind of a more theoretical definition. Motivation are forces, either within, internal, or external, that arouse enthusiasm and persistence to pursue that certain course of action, whatever that may be. We're motivated by all different things, whether it's work or home or personal, et cetera, whatever it may be. But what else drives behavior? That's the question. And that's what we need to get to when we're coaching and mentoring. So I go back to Tim and Brian. Sorry about the weed eaters there. Lawn maintenance today. Focus 3. I love these guys. They're really future thinkers. One of their ideas that they proffer is that leaders create culture. Culture drives behavior. Behavior produces results. So whether you do it by intent or by default, as a leader, you're creating a culture. And you're leading whatever role it may be. It doesn't have to be at the top of the organization. At some place in the organization you're leading. That culture then drives behavior. Behavior produces results. So along with motivation, this organizational culture can influence how we coach and mentor. So remember the E plus R equals O, the simplest formula in the world to memorize. 10 seconds, you've got an event happens, your response equals the outcome. And you control that R, the R factor, in how you respond to people. So with that, thinking about it in the context of coaching and mentoring, imagine the possibilities and how it can change depending on how you lead and how you understand motivation. So why study motivation? Well, think about this. It's critical for enhancing job satisfaction, reducing turnover and absenteeism, those things that I talked about in the last video. They cost you money. Think about the time and the expense of bringing someone new into your organization. Increases productivity, overall and individual. It increases performance and the overall organizational ability to accomplish primary goals and missions, getting back to the root of what we're really trying to do every day when we come into work or at home. I mean, this motivation theory practice really covers both realms completely. So do these sound familiar? Yeah, these are similar things that we talked about in coaching and mentoring. They're all tied in very explicitly. So I just heard somebody say this past week, and I thought it was hilarious. Whether we're leading, managing, motivating, coaching, mentoring, this guy said, it's like raising kids. Our children kind of do what we require of them when they're pretty young. They act how we tell them until they become teenagers. And then what do you do? And I kind of guess, well, then they act like they want to, like themselves. And he said, no. He threw the punchline. Then they act like us. So they're watching us, they're emulating us. And when they come out of that control phase, they start looking like us. So how are you coaching? How are you mentoring? How are you leading? How are you motivating people? You've got to start with the internal perspective, that EQ that, again, I talked about before. It's extraordinarily important to think through. So, theoretical construct. Where does motivation come from? Basically 2 types, and you guys know this stuff. My slide to advance. Intrinsic, extrinsic. Pretty basic. Extrinsic, you think about the outside, money. Yeah, we all want the paycheck, power or prestige, where you work, the quality of the management that's there, those external things, versus the intrinsic, coming from within, making the difference, having more responsibility or growth or autonomy in what we do. Again, be it at home or in the work environment, whatever those may be. Researchers are asking, which is stronger? And as we're kind of looking at millennial changes in generations, an intrinsic tick seems to be going up, where, let's say, baby boomers, not to generalize, but to generalize, we're often driven by money and having a nice home and 1.5 kids and 2 cars. Well, that seems to be shifting some. So think about that and give consideration to that as you are managing, as you're coaching, as you're mentoring. So the dreaded iceberg gap, we've seen this 1,000 times, but it's worth thinking about again. On the surface, we see just a small amount of the exterior of people, what they do, how they act, how they might present themselves. But underneath, these are really tied directly to those intrinsic motivators. And so it's really something for us to think about when we're working with people, when we're managing, coaching, and mentoring. Really important. Take a look at those descriptors there and think how those can tie in and why they're so important. So, question, quiz time. Is motivation something you do to employees? I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to motivate you to learn here at the Fisher College. Does that work? Yeah, probably not. In fact, it's a bit of a stretch to even think that you might do that. Although I've seen it, you probably have too. So what do you do? Oh, I wish we were in class. I would show this video to you. But we are in class. It's just distance. So take a break, Google up Big Bang Theory training penny, and just watch like 4 minutes, 5-minute video. And it's probably somewhat inappropriate, but who cares? It's hilarious. So in this video, Sheldon is offering chocolate to Leonard's girlfriend, Penny, in order to get her to change her behavior, whether that's the resonance of her voice or whatever. So he goes through this experiment, and anyway, just watch the video and see. But my question about it that I ask students when I show this in class is, do we do that sometimes? Do we offer our people in trying to motivate their behavior these little rewards, whatever they may be? Maybe it's not bad at some level, but in the video, in the example you'll see, it's a little bit like over the line. Where do you draw that line? Those are things that we need to talk about, that we need to think about. Anyway, take a pause, watch that, and see if you don't get a laugh. Okay, so what do you think motivates workers in your organization? Is it mostly extrinsic? Is it intrinsic? Is everybody motivated in the same way? Of course they're not. So one of the secrets as a manager, as a coach, or as a mentor is to try to understand how your employees are motivated, what motivates them, and how might you then plug into that so that you can have an effect, so you can make a difference. Remember, lacking motivation results in low productivity, even departure. And again, that's stuff that costs your business money. So what can you do, specific steps or items, to increase motivation? Now, it's going to be at an individual level, of course. Organizationally, you can do some, but largely it's driven at the individual level. And that's what you need to think about. And that's how you need to gauge each person as you're working with them. Again, if we were in class, I would have you think, write, and share. But you can pause the video, jot a couple of ideas down, and then do a little research as well. And I'll post a couple of articles that can help back some of this up and give you some additional information. Second question, what would squash someone's motivation? Man, has it ever happened to you? Have you had that in work or at home in a different way maybe? There's a lot that can be done. Sometimes you don't realize you're doing it. And that's where, as a coach, as a mentor, as a manager, we need to be really cognizant and try to understand where we are, where our people are, so that we can meet them and not allow that to happen. It can happen really easily. Bottom line, coaching, mentoring, inextricably tied to motivation, critical pieces and components. So how about some tools? What tools are available that we could use to increase motivation in our people, particularly on the job? Well, think about job design. As I mentioned before, I was in the paper industry for half a dozen years, and we might rotate folks. We might do some simplification or enlargement of their task, some way to enrich it. And a lot of times, looking at it from the outside, we might not know what that is, so you can ask them for ideas. And I can tell you, they'll likely have some really good ideas, and they may even be money-saving tips that increase your productivity and your return on total capital, or whatever your measurement system is for your business. empowering and engaging people. Think intrinsic motivation, attaching meaning to their work, coaching and mentoring, doing some of those things. They absolutely can make a difference. As a supervisor, it's a key point. You're responsible, or even if you're a friend or a coach or mentoring somebody informally, you need to try to figure out what are the motivation forces that are driving the person that you're working with, your protege. Key question for reflection: how can you create an environment where folks are encouraged to flourish, or your mentee is encouraged to flourish and grow? Key thing that I always try to stop and think about. Quick example, this happened about 2 years ago, and I took this picture. You can't really see, they're young women or girls even, a junior high volleyball court. I was sitting right there in the stands looking out. My daughter was on the floor. This is kind of a church league. She wasn't a great, high school, or is not a great high school volleyball player, but we were having fun, enjoying, getting some exercise and growing. And I'm watching this event take place. And here's what happened. It was game point. The other team's daughter, and the coach was the dad. I kind of figured that out. And she had just served 4 unanswered points using her known successful underhand serve. So she knew how to get back there and make that ball go over. Again, it's the church league, not the big, high dollar over the hand serve and all that sort of thing. Game point, she looks over at her dad at the bench and she indicates, "Can I do my overhand serve?" She was motivated from 4 unanswered points, and it was going to win the game, and she wanted to try, even though she probably knew it was risky. And I look over at the dad, and he shakes his head, and he gives the underhand signal, and it broke my heart. Man, how could you do that? Okay, I got to take a breath. What was motivating the coach? It was the game point. It was the win. She knew that she could be successful. He said no. Or she wanted to try. She was motivated to try. So personal potential. Think about that when you're thinking about motivation, how people are responding or thinking about it. The extrinsic reward, points on the board, or the intrinsic reward, that self-confidence, that personal growth, the potential. And what I ask you to do is give your people permission to fail. Give them some freedom and let them try things. Maybe they're not quite there, but if they don't try and practice, then they'll never get there. So again, a poignant example that still is stuck with me. That was probably 2-3 years ago. All right, so next discussion. That's it for motivation for today. Again, I'll post some readings. Next discussion will be on the GROW coaching model. We'll talk about that, how you can coach people through 4 steps, GROW, and it's pretty quick. And that's it for now. Thank you for listening. Have a great afternoon.